Since the beginning of industrialization, things started going down for the global ecosystem. The increase of CO2 emission released in the atmosphere went into the water, leading to acidification of the ocean, making it less propice to life. Since humans began to fish and create art, sea sponges became essential for pottery, painting, and even very useful as a surgical tool. Its culture increased through the centuries and started to be more and more corrupt with the slave trade. As an example, at that time, the region of Nassau in the Bahamas became the main area of production in the world. Thousands of slaves were sent there to harvest the soft treasure, as it was called back in the days. Slaves were forced to spend hours in water to cultivate sea sponges and had very poor life conditions. Those sponges were then sent to Europe by ship to be sold on the European market. At that time, sea sponges were kind of abundant as they were mostly used for hygiene and art. The culture of sea sponges in Nassau has changed the landscape's shape. Infrastructure was built for the need to produce sea sponges. Shelters for the slaves were also built with new ports to ensure direct shipping to European countries. With the creation of synthetic sponges and the abolishment of slavery, need and production of natural sea sponges has drastically decreased across the year. Nowadays, natural sponges are used all around the world. Most of the production of natural sponges is from Tanzania in Africa, where the weather is mild for sponge growth. On-site, sponge culture constitutes a source of income for a lot of people. It is really important for the economy of the area. Abdallah is one of the 13 sponge breeders allowed by the EDNA, the Swiss organization in Zanzibar. Since 2004, EDNA has been in charge of the production there. It ensures safe working conditions for the breeders and gives them full dental insurance. At the same time, it regulates the amount of sponges produced each year in this area to preserve the fragile ecosystem.
I have worked in sponge production since I was 18. At first, I was really scared about the ocean and to work in the middle of the sea. I didn't know how to swim, and they trained me for that. Now I feel safer and settled in my job. When I was a child, everyone told me that I couldn't work because I was a girl, and girls shouldn't work. But with this job, I got a lot of gratitude. I feel really independent and powerful now. People's state of mind has changed in our country, and women have more and more independence and rights. I have spent most of my life being poor, and now I can feed my 3 children and live a peaceful life. Our standard of living has increased since I started working here. I have a good income now, and I want to buy my own house. Here, everybody works on a sponge field. We are all taking care of sponges and watching them grow between all these nets. Most of the people who live in my village work here. There is no work in our village except tourism and fishing. With sponge production, we all have stable work. Ocean brings me safety and a great future. Now the sea is my friend, and I love it as much as I love my children.
Today, you can pick up a synthetic sponge for just a couple of dollars, but a single sea sponge hand-harvested from the Mediterranean seafloor could set you back $30. Harvesting these sponges is a dangerous work, and the risks don't guarantee big rewards. Sponges used to be plentiful in the Mediterranean, but nowadays they're hard to find, making this already difficult job even harder. So what's happening to sponges here? Is that why they are so expensive? First, the difficulties of harvesting sponges. One of the most dangerous parts of this job happens at the end of the dive. Although it's less common now, the most common diver's injury is decompression sickness. This happens when divers transfer from a high-pressure environment to a low-pressure one too quickly. Nitrogen builds up in a diver's body as they go deeper underwater, and the body needs time to release this nitrogen before reaching the surface. Otherwise, divers risk hurting themselves or worse. Then, a second factor came into account. Antonis Kampourakis spent 50 years diving for sponges. He believes the climate crisis and waste are one major cause of the declining population, as the increase of water temperature increases the development of new sponge disease. Furthermore, synthetic sponges like the ones commonly used to wash dishes are cheap, and that makes them popular. But natural sea sponges have been used for centuries, and they are still essential for pottery, painting, and even as a surgical tool. Especially the global need for sponges has increased over the past 10 years in the sector of painting. Yan Painting in Los Angeles has accepted to speak with us.
A traditional sponging technique uses a dabbing method, which creates depth and texture to any wall. The natural sea sponge roller gives you those same effects, but in a fraction of the time.
Globally, some solutions seem to be viable, such as responsible production that ensures proper working conditions and protection of the environment and species. As a long-term solution, scientists try to preserve the different species of sponges by sequencing DNA of the sea sponges. And so they keep their DNA safe to have a trace of the species and maybe reintroduce them in the future.